Howdy again, it's Mr. Pete, your YouTube shop teacher. Welcome back to the shop. And today's video is going to be all about making a set of keys for this little 4-inch Kurt AngLock vise. And you recall that my buddy Wayne Fitch out of Fort Worth, Texas traded me, swapped. We swapped is what we did for that Hegner saw. So it is used, but it's in quite good condition. I probably will restore it or show how it works in another video, but this one is devoted to making keys so that it will fit into the T-slots of my little closing mill. So let's get started on this project. I like the small vices because they're lightweight, easy to move for me at my advanced stage, but this also is in proportion to that closing milling machine, and I prefer them without the swivel base. If I did have a swivel base, I would only use it for special purposes. Now, as you know, looking at it from the bottom, that these slots here and these slots here are for keys. Now, these slots are 1/2 inch wide, and the T-slots on the milling machine are 9/16. Well, I had a set of keys here. I don't know why I had them, but they're 11/16 by half, so they're the wrong size, of course. I don't know where these came from. Now, factory-made keys are hardened. I'm just going to make soft keys, but you can see that they have a step on them, and they have a hole as counterboard, and you know it would fit like this. Matter of fact, since it's 1/2 inch, it does fit in there. Can't use those. Now, I looked this up in KBC, and they do offer Kurt keys. By the way, they're about $30 or $35, but they did not offer them in this size. They were for the larger vices, so I will have to make one. No big deal. Have you ever watched Mark's videos? He does a nice job, and he's from down under. Well, what I did is to order from KBC some 9/16 stock. This is key stock is all it is. I just rather start with some material that is the right size. It certainly could be milled down from a larger piece, but I don't know, it just makes it easy to do it this way. I already put some die on there. And again, as I said, these are 1/2 inch slots. There's a 1/2 inch dual gauge block. Now, I certainly don't have to use something this accurate. I mean, I'm being foolish actually, and this is shop grade. It's kind of a beat up one, or I wouldn't do this. But you can see those. That gauge block fits perfectly, so 1/2 inch is the size. You got to determine the size, and I already went out and measured the closing mill, and that's also in their manual. It tells you that they're 9/16, which is kind of an unusual size, and with that size I use 1/2 inch T-bolts. These just came from KBC. I think I ordered them too long. One thing I don't like here, and I like a slot rather than holes, so I don't know, I may open these up into a slot, because really when you go to install your vise, it's kind of awkward, especially with a bigger vise. So these really are designed to be used with T-nuts and then bolts, but I like T-bolts. So, all right, that's off topic. Some of you will be pleasantly surprised, others will be dismayed that I actually made a drawing. It's a blueprint. I did it on blue paper. It's an isometric, you know, I like pictorials that are dimensioned. I think it's just so easy to understand, but here you can see that I'm starting with the 9/16 stock, and it's going to be about 5/8 long, a total of 350 thousandths thick, 500 thousandths here on the step. That's what will fit into the vise, and 250 here, and some of these dimensions are not very critical at all, but I am actually working from a blueprint. Are you shocked and surprised? Well, this height gauge is set at 250, .250 that is. This height gauge is set at .350. So everything above the line here where my thumbnail is, need to cut my nails by the way, is waste stock. Now I could saw that off, but that takes just as long as milling. Now the height gauge is set at 1/32. Now it isn't really necessary to do a layout. I could do everything just with the digital readout. And that's how long I will make it. Because remember, I'm making 2 of them at the same time, then I'll chop them off. There are times when I prefer a decimal equivalent chart that has none of the extras on it, just a simple one like that. So that's one of my favorite ones, and I have a wall chart like that as well. But you don't see those giveaways very often anymore, and I suppose Leicester Street, whatever it is there, in the Palmolive building, which later became the Playboy building. Remember that? Now it's called something else. Art Deco building. At the Bridgeport now, one of the first things I find that I like to do is to make sure that my vise is indicated in. Remember, this little Bridgeport vise, which is a 5-incher, is held on with keys, but are the keys accurate? Let's check it out real quick. I like it to be within about 1/1000th or 2. Okay, this vise is ready to use without any adjustments. I still have to emphasize there are so many different ways of approaching a project. You do it any way you want. This is just my method. So I do have layout lines on here, and I want to remove this waste stock, which is 212,000. So what I've already done is come up and touched off on the work, and I'll take that in 2 passes. So I'm going to raise the table up now 150 thousandths. There's 150. That's just my roughing cut. Then I'll come back. That'll be all the way down to that black line there. Carbide end mill, 3/4, given to me also by my buddy Wayne Fitch. And then I'll take another pass, 62 thousandths, a finishing pass, which is 1/16 of an inch. And there I am with Wayne at my meet and greets. Wayne was smitten by my 4-year-old grandson Henry, and there he is at his 4th birthday party. Eat your heart out, Wayne. Alright, I'm down to the correct thickness. I've changed end mills. I've got a 3/8 end mill in. I'll bring it down and touch off, lock the quill, move the table out of the way, and I'm going to raise the table 100 thousandths. Now I want to touch off, but yet I'm on the back side of the work, so I want to find the edge, and I'm doing that rather than switch to an edge finder. Just with a piece of 1-inch 1/1000th, make that 1/1000th brass shim stock until I touch the shim stock, and then I can zero out the digital readout. Just in case you do not understand what I'm doing, here's a sample piece, and I'm just reducing the width here by a total of 1/16 of an inch. That's a 32nd on each side. So looking here, you can see that isn't very much of a step. So I am zeroed out, and now I am looking at my digital readout and moving in 31 thousandths, and then I'm ready to cut. Now I'm ready to cut, and I will turn the machine on and away I go. And by the way, I am climb milling, which I prefer to do because it gives me a better finish. I removed some burrs, cleaned it off, and now I'm miking it. And I have, what, 530, so I have 30 thousandths to take off the other side to bring it down to 500 thousandths. Several things here. Have you noticed how dangerously close I am to the hardened vise jaws? But yet I want a good grip on the work, but I carefully chose, well, in this case they're 1¼ inch parallels that brought me up to the right height. So it's nice to have a large selection of parallels. Well, I touched off already, and I intend to take the final removal here in 2 passes. So I've already fed in 20 thousandths, and I will take a cut all the way up to the line here. Then I can measure again and remove the exact amount so that I end up with 500 thousandths, just the way I do it. Make sure you remove the chips and clean the work and burrs before you take a measurement. And I've got, so 10 thousandths is my final feed, and I'll feed in. I won't show that on the digital readout. Now notice that I am at the end of the work here, so I'm going to plunge that 10,000, not that that is much material to remove. But then I'm feeding in the other direction again so that I am climb milling, my preferred feed method for the final pass and a better finish. I am looking at the digital readout, and by the way, the cutter has to be turning in order for me to plunge cut. There we go, 10 thousandths, and I'm ready to cut. It's reading 501, so I actually will take one more pass without increasing the feed, and possibly because of the flexing of the tool, the cutter, it probably will take it down to 500. So I'll take another pass off camera, and I'll see you over at the bench. Let's take a few measurements here with the Schar's caliper, and I'm right at 500 thousandths. Now these dimensions, and as far as the 9/16, you can see that it's just about a thousandth over. You know, it's not too critical there. There's plating on here. Sometimes the plating throws it off, so I may have to dress that up to get it to go onto the closing. Now these dimensions aren't critical at all, but remember the drawing called for 350, and I'm at 351. Well, no big deal. And here, this needs to be about 250, and I'm at 252, 251, so all the dimensions are really quite good. So I'm happy. Let's see if it fits. And it does, but as you can see right here, the radius of the cutter, when they made the slot at the factory, you can still see the radius here as well as here, so naturally it doesn't fit in, go in all the way on the end. However, these slots here are made just a little bit differently. The radius is up here, so we got a good fit. I don't know if I showed this in a video recently, but there was another video on this when I got this, and these slots here, these key slots, were really beat up, especially on one end. Someone had hammered the heck out of it, so I spent a lot of time at that time cleaning it up with needle files smaller than this, because it was just all battered. But that's okay now. So that I need to drill and counterbore some holes and then cut to length. By the way, one other thing I did not tell you, make absolutely sure you do not take your work out of the milling machine vise until it is complete. down to dimensions. You can never put it back the same. I repeat that often because I always have new viewers. Most of you that have been watching me for a long time have heard me harp on that before. There they are, both with just belt sanded ends on them, which is just fine. Now I have determined that these holes are 832 thread. Pretty small screw, by the way, for something like that. And I've already installed a transfer punch, 832. And taking one of them like this, I'm going to put the red side like here, and I'm going to invade that T-slot bolt just a little bit. The bolts are going to come up like that, and they are elongated so I can come just a little bit in there and tap it. The holes are drilled and I'm ready to counter bore with the appropriate size for 832 to the right depth. Make sure that you counter bore from the correct side. There they are. Let's see how they fit up. Well, let's go on out in the garage to the closing mill, see how it fits up. I'm out in the cold garage with the closing milling machine. I have the vise mounted and the last word indicator set up. So let's run it across the jaws and see what we got. The vise is tightened down. Indicator's up against the jaw. And let's see what we got here. Oh, it's within. I gotta get close. It's within a thousandth or so. Let me run it back and I'll speed up the film. It's a lot of cranking. All right, I want to move the table just to show you that the indicator is up against the jaws. Well, that completes this video on making keys for the Kurt vise to fit onto the closing mill. This is Tubalcain saying so long for now, and I hope you liked it. Maybe you have such a project that needs to be done in your shop. See you next time.